Now, the first point I have is that the EU is and is not a superpower. And I'll define first what I mean by superpower. For me, a superpower is a state with a leading position in the international system and an ability to project power on a worldwide scale. So a superpower is a state with a leading position in the international system and an ability to project power on a worldwide scale. With this definition in mind, first then, why is the EU not a superpower? And I'll give you 3 reasons. 1, the EU is not a state. The EU is more than an international organization, but less than a state. So therefore, by definition, it cannot be a superpower in today's world. 2, and here comes the institutionalist in me, unfortunately, and I stress unfortunately, the international system is still based on states, namely nation states. And because the EU is not a state, it cannot be a superpower. And finally, thirdly, the EU does not necessarily want to project power worldwide. What it does do, it projects a soft power in its near abroad. So for those 3 reasons, and with that background, I would argue that the EU is not a superpower. The EU is a superpower in trade and aid, but not necessarily in common foreign security policy or defense policy. So point number 1 today, the EU is and is not a superpower. And make no mention of it, I'd love it to be one. I am a true European federalist, one of the few that still exist. And I would like to see the EU becoming a superpower. Monetary policy. Our interest rates are not done at home anymore. They're done in Frankfurt. And those unfortunate 12 countries who are still not yet in the euro, they set their interest rates within a snap of a finger when the ECB does its own, whether they like it or not. The Bank of England, with all due respect, is a lame duck in comparison. Well, I'd argue that we are weak for 3 reasons. 1, some countries are still obsessed with what I call nation-state nostalgia. They believe that the state is at the center of the system, and to a certain extent, of course, we have 27 players, but the state, in my mind, in the EU, is not at the center of the system anymore. Some of our, with all due respect, bigger states still have superpower nostalgia. We have no superpowers in the EU anymore. We have max mid-sized powers, if you compare them to China, if you compare them to the US, if, for instance, you compare them to Russia. Then finally, I think we need a change in the mood inside the European Union. Unfortunately, I'd say since the Nice negotiations and with the constitutional dilemma that we are in, the mood in Europe has turned sour, and I don't like it. I don't like it one bit, and something needs to be done about it. I don't have a magic solution, but we, the European states, including the European foreign ministers, need to understand that there's no alternative to European integration. Not one alternative which can be seriously taken. And this has, of course, repercussions on what could be called a new world order or a new international system. It has repercussions on EU-US relations, and it has repercussions on EU-Russia, EU-China relations. And something needs to be done about it. And I think the window of opportunity is now, because we have a new Russian administration, an unwritten book so far, but with some very positive signals. There's a lot still to be done in order for those strengths to be improved, and there's no alternative to European integration. Thank you very much.